And commanding in Korea showed me that years of combined training and shared risk with regional partners creates relationships that cannot be forced in crisis.
I think that we can all agree that the declining readiness trends are unacceptable.
General, last year the Air Force testified it was operating the oldest and smallest fleet in history with elevated readiness risk.
Cutting people at Joint Munitions Command? When we're going through munitions like water, it feels so short-sighted, but it's not just me saying it.
여러분도 뉴스에서 한 번쯤 보셨을 겁니다. 미국의 군사력이 얼마나 대단한지에 대한 이야기 말입니다. 그런데 정작 미국 내부에서는 꽤 당혹스러운 목소리가 나오고 있습니다. 비싼 최첨단 전투기를 샀는데 고칠 부품이 없어. 다른 비행기 부품을 빼쓰고 배들이 정비를 못해 바다에 나가지 못한다는 겁니다. 겉은 화려해 보이지만 속으로는 정비 부실이라는 심각한 구멍이 뚫린 상황인 건데요. 미국 의회 청문회에서 가감없이 터져나온 그들의 속내, 지금 확인해 보시죠.
I'd like to welcome everyone to today's hearing. I particularly want to thank all of our esteemed witnesses for accepting our invitation to discuss the plight of our military readiness. I think that we can all agree that the declining readiness trends are unacceptable. These trends have been years in the making and are causing aircraft to be cannibalized and ground vehicles to sit idle, as two examples. While I look forward to our witnesses' thoughts, I would like to offer a few ideas as to what we in Congress need to do to make our military more lethal and effective in the near term. First of all, we need to do the hard work and focus on sustaining the existing fleet. The sad fact is that we have allowed our military readiness to broadly decline because we are more focused on procuring that shiny object rather than holistically managing the day-to-day maintenance necessary to sustain our military. Secondly, the overall top line requested by the administration in the fiscal year 2027 budget request is unprecedented, but absolutely essential to address the plight of our military forces. For too long, our military has relied on legacy force structure that has not been maintained to the readiness levels required. One needs not look further than the Joint Strike Fighter program and the readiness levels provided by this exquisite platform. Cannibalizing our Joint Strike Fighter fleet because we have not provided the basic parts to support this superior platform is not a reasonable long-term solution to maintaining current readiness. This budget request, with the accompanying reconciliation supplement, will break this cannibalization cycle and put the Joint Strike Fighter on a sustainable path. Finally, we need to develop a modernization strategy that provides for our ability to maintain legacy assets through their expected service life. A stark example of this readiness crisis is the state of our amphibious fleet. The Marine Corps has long championed a naval strategy capable of accelerated national security response and has consistently advocated for the restoration of a 3.0 amphibious readiness group worldwide presence, a standard the Navy has to date failed to meet. Years of neglect, misplaced priorities, and open derision from certain Navy pundits have left less than half of our amphibious ships available for tasking. This is not a maintenance problem. It is a leadership problem. This subcommittee will hold the Navy accountable for restoring these ships to their expected service life. The Marine Corps should not have to implore its sister service for the platforms it needs to execute America's crisis response mission. In conclusion,
방금 들으셨나요? 미국 군대가 기본 정비조차 안 돼서 부품 돌려막기를 하고 있다는 겁니다. 새 장비를 사는 데만 정신이 팔려 매일 해야 할 관리를 놓쳤다는 건데 이건 운영 체계 자체가 엉망이 됐다는 뜻입니다. 그렇다면 이런 상황이 어디까지 이어지고 있을까요? 다음 장면에서 더 구체적으로 드러납니다.
I understand there's an ongoing investigation of the fire, and I'd like to make sure that we are kept abreast of the results of that. But there's more to it than that, and that is the sustainment of this platform itself. Extending these deployments like the Ford do not just strain the crew, they create maintenance backlogs that reverberate across the entire fleet, because it's not just that one ship, it is also the support vessels that are necessary. Thus, our options are limited, for future contingencies, throwing career availability plans out of the balance, and while our force deployed base our needs of the COCOMs, I want to be very direct that we need transparency, accountability of the cascading effects that these extended deployments have on the maintenance schedules, on readiness, and on the quality of life and on the retention. The same pressures that now confined to the are not confined to the carrier fleet. We talked, the chairman talked about the Marine Corps. I'll short this part of it, but there is a very serious problem with the Marines and their ability to meet the requirements that they have. Obviously, the ships that they need are not available, but they could be if they were properly maintained. And so we're going to drill down on that piece of it. I'll let this part of my testimony go for a moment because the chairman covered it in detail. We have many, many challenges ahead of us. Space Force, and in fact all of you, lost a significant portion of your civilian workforce due to personnel reductions. Without going in that in great detail, it is creating a problem, particularly since your budgets were significantly increased in the 25-26 period of time. And are those increases able to be carried out without the civilian force available to do the paperwork, the contracts, and the like? With regard to the Space Force, you are scheduled under the new budget proposal to double. How do you do that? And what do you need to be able to carry that out? I value the conversations that we've had on this. And finally, I do want to pick up one of the more persistent and frustrating readiness problems facing all of you, and that is the lack of access to technical data that our maintainers need to repair the equipment that we own. This is not a new problem, but it's an urgent one, and it is the direct result of sustainment being treated as an afterthought during the acquisition process. We continue to talk about this here. We continue to drive this issue.
상륙함 가동률이 절반도 안 된다니 정말 이상하지 않나요? 배는 있는데 띄울 수가 없는 상황인 겁니다. 쉽게 말해 도구는 잔뜩 갖춰놨는데 정작 사용할 줄 몰라서 못 쓰고 있는 셈입니다. 그런데 더 답답한 건 이게 갑자기 생긴 일이 아니라 아주 오랫동안 방치되어 왔다는 점입니다. 여기서 미국 육군 지휘관의 말이 눈길을 끕니다. 미국이 이렇게 준비태세로 골머리를 앓는 와중에 유독 강조하는 경험이 하나 있습니다. 바로 대한민국에서 함께 보낸 시간들입니다.
Every decision I make as the vice chief begins and ends with one question. Does this make our soldiers more lethal and ready to fight and win when called upon? Today, over 212,000 soldiers are deployed or forward postured across 160 countries, securing our interests in the Western Hemisphere, deterring aggression in the Indo-Pacific, and responding to threats worldwide. In the Middle East, our soldiers continue to defend U.S. forces and partners, sustain layered air defense and missile defense, maintain our long-range strike capabilities, and our sustainment forces are postured across the theater, moving fuel, munitions, and medical support, while command posts integrate joint fires and intelligence to respond to the evolving threats. Operations overseas are sustained by the command structure and ready forces we maintain at home. We consolidated Army North and South into Western Hemisphere Command to create a single unified headquarters responsible for homeland defense. And in the Indo-Pacific, the Army maintains 91,000 troops and committed $1.3 billion to the Pacific Deterrence Initiative. We're decisively modernizing our full spectrum of capabilities to counter any pacing threat. And commanding in Korea showed me that years of combined training and shared risk with regional partners creates relationships that cannot be forged in crisis. Those enduring bonds built through repetition and sustained presence underpin our posture in the region and reinforce our operations globally. We're building readiness for the future fight at our combat training centers, and having been the commander of the ops group at Joint Readiness Training Center, I know the value of our CTCs. It's where we train our soldiers to fight against any adversary in the mud, to solve complex problems, and to test our new kit. But we can't field our modern kit while sustaining aging systems that consume time and manpower. Divesting legacy platforms reduces the maintenance demand that falls hardest on our junior soldiers. This is why we restructured our acquisition process to close the distance between soldiers' feedback and program decisions from years down to months.
위기가 닥친 뒤에는 절대 만들 수 없는 관계. 바로 한국과 여러 해 동안 함께 훈련하며 쌓아온 믿음을 말하는 겁니다. 묵묵히 실력을 쌓아온 한국과의 경험이 실제 작전에서 얼마나 큰 힘이 되는지 지휘관의 목소리에서 그대로 느껴집니다.
Amphibious ships, General Goering. The Marine Corps has advocated for a 3.0 amphibious readiness group worldwide presence. In your best professional military judgment, do you think the existing amphibious fleet is sufficient to meet this 3.0 goal? And if it is not, can you provide us with the number of ships that we should pursue to realize this goal?
Chairman, thank you for the question. Recently, the Secretary of the Navy has directed that we establish the Amphibious Force Readiness Board that I co-chair with Admiral Kilby. And one of the objectives of that board is to determine ultimately what would be the right number of amphibious ships. And it's really a three different phased approach. One is selective service life extension. The other is optimizing our maintenance and how we force generate. And the third is procuring new ships. I think the VCNO and I are in agreement that that number is north of 31. This board owes more detailed analysis to the Secretary of the Navy. Initial indicators that is probably somewhere in the vicinity of 40, but there's more work to be done there. So thank you for the question, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. I look forward to hearing when the meeting is going to be, when the board meets, and some, due out results quickly. Admiral Kilby, I particularly support the Navy's goal to obtain an 80% surge-ready force posture. What steps is Navy taking to arrest the continued amphibious force structure decline and deliver on the CNO's goal to make the amphibious forces 80% surge ready?
Chairman, thanks for that question. Another effort that I work with the ACMAC is maintenance of these ships. So I'm going to give you some specific examples, but last year when I came to testify before you, we were at 42% combat surge ready. Today we're at 45% combat surge ready. A month ago, we were at 54% combat surge ready. That number changes because ships enter maintenance and leave maintenance. So that number is a number that we predict, and when we achieve the number we thought we were going to achieve, great. If we don't achieve the number we thought we were going to achieve, it's because there's been a problem with maintenance. So some of the areas we're working on and have it executed already is a flag level review of any availability that has over 10% of growth in it. We have found once you exceed 10% growth in availability, the availability explodes. So that's thing one. There has to be a governor there, and that's provided by flag over.
결국 다시 상륙한 문제로 돌아옵니다. 정비만 제대로 했으면 쓸 수 있었을 배들을 그냥 놀리고 있다는 건데 미국 입장에서는 마음이 급할 수밖에 없습니다. 껍데기만 큰 군대가 아니라 실제로 싸울 수 있는 군대를 만드는 게 얼마나 어려운 일인지 뼈저리게 느끼고 있는 겁니다.
Just know we're going to do a second round of questions, so we don't get them all on the front end. So the bottom line is, Mr. Garamendi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and for the witnesses, thank you so much for your opening statements. There's much that was said and much more that needs to be said. Admiral Kirby, you were answering on the amphibs, the questions that are there. The same issues apply to all the other vessels. The reporting from the GAO and others is that significant progress has yet to be made across all of your ships and for the Army as well as for the Air Force. And I suppose we'll see the same thing eventually for the Space Force, that you are not able to maintain what you have. For the Army, you've fallen behind. The numbers tend to continue to decline for your major platforms. The Navy, you just answered part of the questions. There's obviously more. The Marine Corps, you've got some problems with your airframe, and obviously for the Air Force similarly. So what I want to do is to get down to the nuts and bolts of this. You're going to have to improve the maintenance of all of your platforms. Otherwise, we're going to continue to buy more and get less availability unless we improve the maintenance. In order to do that, you have relied in the past upon the developers of the platform. What I want to go to each of you is the right to maintain, the right for the information. Do you, and answer a question for each one of you, is it important for you to have the right to repair? And are you attempting to get that in your contracts? So let's start right on down the line, each one of you. The right to repair.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the question. Absolutely. You hit on both of the key points of this in your opening, sir. So, right to repair and the technical data. So the technical data, we believe strongly we have to do this early on in the contracting processes, and you've given us the ability to do that, and we're moving out with that process. But it's also in our industrial base to get the advanced manufacturing up and running so our soldiers can repair the gear that our supply chains just cannot keep up with so we can maintain our legacy system.
사람이 부족한 것만으로는 설명이 안 됩니다. 더 황당한 건 자기네 장비를 어떻게 고치는지 적힌 기술 자료조차 제대로 없다는 말입니다. 내 물건인데 고치는 법을 몰라서 못 고친다니 참 낯설죠. 이렇게 기본부터 꼬여버린 상황에서 미국은 과연 답을 찾을 수 있을까요?
This hearing comes at a critical moment. U.S. forces are not just preparing for conflict, they are actively engaged while continuing to meet global commitments across multiple theaters. The core question I have today is not whether the joint force can fight tonight, it is whether we can sustain operations, absorb losses, and regenerate combat power fast enough to remain ready for a large-scale conflict. So I'm going to start with General Leneve. I want to discuss force allocation, health, and long-term readiness. General Leneve, the Army is deploying high-demand systems like air defense systems across multiple theaters. Are these the same systems we would rely on in a large-scale conflict?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what risks does that create for our ability to respond to a second contingency?
Ma'am, my role as the vice is to man, train, equip, and certify and to build the force that COCOM commanders will utilize. We're supporting Admiral Cooper and team. If we have to surge to another location, then we'll have to look at how we balance that to be able to provide the resources necessary. I appreciate the question.
All right. This is about force health and long-term readiness now. General Leneve, are sustained operational demands impacting retention, family stability, or overall force health in ways that could degrade readiness over time?
And ma'am, again, thank you for the question. We are not seeing a degradation in retention, right now. We will let you know if we see that over time. It's something that we look at. We continue to assess where the force is, but right now, retention and recruiting is up.
All right, thank you. Now I'm going to go to General Lamontagne to shift to aircraft capacity and the Air Force's role in sustaining operations. General, last year the Air Force testified it was operating the oldest and smallest fleet in history with elevated readiness risk. Since then, we've seen confirmed aircraft losses and additional battle damage. At an unclassified level, what concerns do you have that the Air Force has regarding its ability to maintain aircraft capacity and maintenance depth to sustain current operations while possibly preparing for a large-scale conflict?
Congresswoman Strickland, thank you very much for the question. Key issue for our United States Air Force, as you outlined and as we've testified previously. And so we are redoubling our efforts to invest in our ability to maintain the airplanes. Historically, we've invested in our weapon system sustainment, which is largely spare parts engineering and a lot of other things that supports that, to about an 85% level. Last year, it was an 86% level, so some improvement, but not enough. This year's budget in 27 takes us to 93%, an additional $3.2 billion to help us sustain those airplanes over time. Very important issue for your United States Air Force.
Great, thank you. And in closing, I want to just remind us that we're experiencing aircraft losses and damage, expanding munitions at high rates, operating within an industrial base that is constrained and placing sustained demand on the force itself. So really the question we should ask ourselves, Are we maintaining readiness for a large-scale peer conflict, or are we consuming the force faster than we can regenerate it? And to my colleague, Congressman Austin's question about what happened with General George, General George was in charge of First Corps at Joint Base Lewis McChord when I was mayor of Tacoma. He and his wife have dedicated their lives to serving our country. And just to be clear, once the Secretary of Army clears an individual for promotion to general, the Secretary of Defense should not be removing them because their records have been highly vetted, highly scrutinized, and these people are qualified for the jobs. And we look forward to hearing an explanation from Secretary Hegseth when he meets with the full House Armed Services Committee on April 29th. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Jimenez, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm going to go with a little different line of questioning. And for Admiral Kilby, what is the size of our fleet today?
292 ships, sir.
How many of those are combat ready?
It depends on the class. If it's surface ships, 63% are combat surge ready. If it's submarines, 65% combat surge ready. And if it's amphibious ships, 45% combat surge ready.
Is every ship, you have 292 ships, are all those fully billeted?
They are not all fully billeted. We have, as I said in my opening statement, 18,000 gaps at sea. So those gaps are spread across all those ships.
But are there ships that are not combat ready that have crews for those ships?
Yes, sir.
How many of those do we have?
I have to get back to you exactly on how many ships are in the depot right now.
마지막으로 더 심각한 건 수십 년 경력에 숙련된 전문가들까지 내쫓고 있다는 사실입니다. 탄약을 물쓰듯 쓰는 시대에 정작 만들 줄 아는 사람들을 줄이는 모습. 이게 지금 우리가 보는 미국 군대의 민낯입니다.
I did want to talk about a serious thing today. The Army is currently using management-directed reassignments to move thousands of civilian employees across functions and locations across the country. Many of these employees are my neighbors who work at the Rock Island Arsenal. Many are veterans who have worked at Rock Island for 15, 20, and 30 years. A lot of them have been working at Joint Munitions Command, the exact folks that we need who know how to scale up munitions production in desperate times, and it seems appropriate for the time that we are in now. General Leneve, I'm thankful that before our committee meeting here today, you mentioned an upcoming visit to the Rock Island Arsenal, and I hope to stand beside you when you are there. Could you help me understand a little bit about why the Army is executing a command matching program, how you identify positions affected, and the timeline for completion, especially with such an active theater in Iran?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. And I do look forward to going back to Rock Island and going with you. Sir, what we're trying to do is match holes across our workforce with the talent that needs to be maintained across all of our sites, whether it's in the industrial base or it's in our headquarters, to try to match where the holes are. We got about 5,000 to 6,000 across the workforce that we're working on doing this. We're trying to look as hard as we can at matching skills and attributes and experience to fill these holes. I know it is I mean, we're dealing with people and their lives, and we're trying to do it with the biggest care that we possibly can in order to sustain the workforce for the long term. And, you know, as we scale, you know, we hope to scale, we want to have the most optimized workforce there to be able to do it. But it's not just done in a vacuum, sir. You know, we're looking at you know, the skills and attributes that we're trying to plug, and we're trying to do it with much care. There's been some reports out there that people are being told to move without any compensation. It's not true. Anything over 50 miles are being, there's a compensation package associated with it. So we're trying to think through this, and we're trying to get it accomplished, you know, in a relatively quick manner.
And I appreciate that diligence. But in the past 10 days, I have met with many folks who, many of them have done their service in the military, but then they put roots down in the community for decades. And some of them come to me and they say, Eric, I have done what was right here. I have a perfect record. There is no one anywhere that does the work that I'm doing. So why am I surplused? And now they're given 5 days to decide to uproot families or they'll be terminated. Well, I'll tell you, most people spend more than 5 days to figure out which used car to buy or which dishwasher to get. So how on earth do we think that this helps us meet a mission? Cutting people at Joint Munitions Command? When we're going through munitions like water, it feels so short-sighted, but it's not just me saying it.
오늘 미국 하원 군사위원회 영상을 보며 시청자 여러분들은 어떤 생각이 드셨나요? 미국 군대가 정작 기본 정비와 인력 관리라는 기초적인 부분에서 어려움을 겪고 있는 모습은 꽤 충격적입니다. 하지만 그 혼란 속에서도 미국 지휘관이 대한민국과의 훈련 경험을 대체 불가능한 힘마이라고 콕 집어 말한 대목은 생각하게 만듭니다. 함께 땀 흘리며 실력을 쌓고 철저한 준비로 스스로를 지켜온 우리의 모습이 결국 이런 인정으로 돌아온 것이 아닐까요? 우리가 생각한 것보다 대한민국은 더 큰 존재가 되었다는 사실을 다시 한번 느끼게 됩니다. 오늘 영상을 보며 시청자 여러분들은 어떤 생각이 드셨나요? 오늘 영상은 여기까지입니다. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다.